Aaron Dykes and I have spent the last 2 days in deep research, codifying all of our previous research and the latest developments, putting it into a detailed report, Al-Qaeda, 100% Pentagon run, at Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't real jihadi, Al-Qaeda, psychopaths, criminals, dupes, miscreants, misfits, misguided loons that are attacking. But Al-Qaeda, according to Brzezinski, who founded them in '79 under the Taliban, it is the name of a CIA database of jihadi fighters from all over the Middle East and Central Asia, who then are funded and financed through spy handlers like Amir al-Awlaki, who was brought up in the U.S., Pentagon trained, secretly hanging out at the Pentagon, Associated Press, Fox News, Reuters. It's all there. So I wanted Webster Griffin Tarpley, who's been doing a stunning job and is the true omnibudsman of understanding this, to go through their history. And we'll take the whole hour if we have to go through their whole history, who they are, what they are. But yes, when they suicide bomb someone, it's real. Those guys believe in what they're doing. When they go into a CIA base in Pakistan and blow up a bunch of people, it's real. And you notice that guy last year that blew up a bunch of CIA people in Pakistan, he'd been one of their double agents. Many of them are trained, they're picked up in different areas of the world. They're taken to torture centers. Then they're recruited and put out as commanders. The Reuters and others and BBC, it's just all over the news now, are reporting one of the main rebel leaders admits there's 1,000 Al-Qaeda fighters under him and that he was picked up years ago and taken to a U.S. black site, ghost site, and then released. Many of these leaders, it turns out, were picked up, then released, and then go out as double agents to lead. The SWAT guy, it came out in the London Telegraph and BBC, in 2006, a year after the 7/7 bombings, that he was the guy who ran the attacks, but then he was allowed to fly in and out of England to Africa and back. And when the lower level Scotland Yard wanted to arrest him, MI6 said, no, he's ours. The underwear bomber, brought on board the plane by the sharp-dressed man, didn't have to have a passport, didn't have to have anything. He got a visa from the U.S. When the visa office got in trouble, the Assistant Secretary of State, Mr. Kennedy, said, look, I was ordered by an unnamed U.S. intelligence agency to give him a visa and help him get on the plane. Just as Kurt Haskell, the lawyer, and his wife, who witnessed all this, had said on this show first. Okay? Amir al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey, handling the Fort Hood shooter, handling the shoe bomber. On record, the government says it's him. And they won't release to Congress the hundreds of emails from him and the psychiatrist Hassan of Fort Hood infamy. It's just like the FBI, even mainstream news in the last year has admitted, that the FBI, in fact, you just type it into a search engine, FBI creating terror, FBI creating groups. And it's not even Muslims or Arabs. It's generally guys with Anglo last names or Hispanic or African Americans who get recruited into Islam in prison. And they don't go join some Al-Qaeda group. The FBI comes as Al-Qaeda, sets them up, gives them dummy bombs to create this perception of terror. So what the CIA and high-level Pentagon is doing is one level more sophisticated. Because I saw a comment, and then we're going to Webster, but I want to preface this. I saw a comment on the PrisonPlanet.com version of the posting of Al-Qaeda 100% Pentagon run by Rabbit 2000. And he said, Alex, we're getting it in the pants from Al-Qaeda. And there's these other military guys saying, we know we're not allowed to catch him or capture him, and there's some truth to this, but why would the Pentagon want to have its own people killed? Don't they want to win? The Pentagon wins, because it works for the offshore banks, by funding the commanders of Al-Qaeda and other groups to attack as a pretext to go in and get the $500 billion a year in opium out of Afghanistan that went from 10% of world production of opium before the takeover in 2001 to over 93% now. You could type that in, 90+% of opium now coming out of Afghanistan. To the weapon sales, the pretext to destabilize Pakistan. I've had the former head of Pakistani intelligence on to break that down. When 8,000 Taliban and Al-Qaeda, Cream, Times of London, Newsweek, Airlift of Evil, were captured 2001, 2002, they would be ordered to release them, pay them money, gold, the international currency, and fly them out on C-130s to Pakistan. Okay, and the media tried to spin it like it was Pakistan, but it was our own military doing it. This is how they're operating this. This is how the globalists get their wars. Their business is war. Remember, About 15 years ago, there was a famous case of a guy in Manhattan who ran and advertised and ran the biggest windshield repair shop. And he had a team of 4 guys who went out every night with ball-peen hammers and busted people's windshields. And then guess who had billboards and signs up, get your windshield fixed for the lowest price. It's very simple. The globalist bankers want to take our liberties, they menace us with Al-Qaeda. They want to overthrow Gaddafi, they put in Al-Qaeda. They want to overthrow the Serbs, say it's humanitarian. When the Serbs fight back, they bring in Al-Qaeda. They want to get the Russians to start a war with them, bring in Al-Qaeda, 1979. The media tells you that we got involved in 82. So Webster Tarpley is going to break this down for you from the history right through what's happening today to understand what's going on here. Webster, you, of course, have authored the seminal book that, again, when I read it 5 years ago, 5 years ago when it came out, I'd already separately, the reason I could confirm it was all so accurate and took me to another level, though, and taught me something, was separately, I'd seen all this in government documents that are public, mainstream news, all there, but never put together in one place, like 911 synthetic terror, made in the USA. And the former head of German intelligence, Andres von Bülow, and former Minister of Research and Technology said 911 synthetic terror is brilliantly and most sovereignly written. One can't stop reading. Webster delivers a devastating judgment. Congratulations, I endorse it wholeheartedly. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on with the people that endorse this book. And so I certainly hope you get it at Infowars.com. But regardless, it is a treatise. It is written very scholarly. But if you read this, you'll understand everything, okay? And we tried to boil it down in the 9.5-minute video with documents the entire time. Al-Qaeda, 100% Pentagon run. And that's an oversimplification, but the point is it's globalist rogue network run through the rogue networks in Israeli Mossad, in British MI6, in U.S. intelligence, in Saudi intelligence. So, Webster, you've got the floor for the rest of this segment and the next, and I've got questions. Then I want to go into what's currently happening and the larger strategy here. But do you concur with the analysis I just laid out?
Oh, yes, by all means. There's just one thing to point out, though, because people find it confusing. There has been a change. There's been a shift, and it's this. Al-Qaeda is exactly what you say. Under Bush, Cheney, and the neocons, Al-Qaeda was a reason to bomb and invade countries with the idea that, for example, if you have Zarqawi, right? Zarqawi was a guy who was in an enclave of Iraq that was not controlled by Saddam Hussein. It was defended. It was the so-called Ansar group. The U.S. Air cover, the no-fly zone, protected him. And at a certain point in 2004, I believe it was, when the credibility of bin Laden was getting shot up by various British documentaries and others, Zarqawi comes out and says, I am the supporter of bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and I pledge eternal loyalty. And this was a godsend for U.S. propaganda because it allowed the U.S. to say, aha, you see, Bush was right all along, Al-Qaeda is in Iraq. And, of course, what those people did then inside Iraq was that they went out and killed a great number of Shiites to get a civil war going to split the population so there would not be a united front against the U.S. forces. So Bush Cheney would say, if Al-Qaeda is there, we can bomb them, we can invade them. Now, in the case of Obama, with the new Brzezinski strategy, which is different, with Obama, you see, Al-Qaeda becomes your infantry. It becomes the U.S. ground forces. The idea, I guess...
It goes back to its inception under Brzezinski, and you predicted 3 years ago this would be the change in strategy.
It's gone back to what it was at the beginning. When Brzezinski and Robert Gates, the current boss of the Pentagon, when Robert Gates was deputy director of the CIA, as he more or less tells us in his memoirs, he said, we considered creating a CIA Arab Legion to go fight the Soviets in Afghanistan, but then we decided not to. Well, unfortunately, he decided to do it, or he and others. So today, the idea is the United States is so poor, so overstretched, right? We're suffering from imperial overstretch. We can't have an invading force, or these characters would rather not have an invading force. So they say, we'll provide air cover, and the ground forces, the ground troops, our divisions, in effect, our infantry, will be this Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, meaning the Libyan Islamic fighting group, which which is an older terrorist organization, which was then sheep-dipped into Al-Qaeda. They declared themselves part of Al-Qaeda, I believe, in 2007. It was announced by Ayman Zawahiri, the reputed MI6 double agent who essentially runs the show there with this bin Laden who may or may not be there, this troupe of actors, whatever it is. So that's the difference. It used to be that Al-Qaeda was something that you would bomb and strafe and invade and try to kill and use to create a civil war. But in this case, it's slightly different because now the air support comes in on the side of Al-Qaeda. And with that, though, you've got a tremendous contradiction, because in Obama's speech the other night, Obama said, well, I want to salute the American military because they're going after Al-Qaeda all across the globe. Well, no, not in Libya, where you're arming them and financing them and providing air support, and not in Yemen, because the group that's trying to overthrow the government of Yemen are basically people who have been recycled through the Guantanamo Bay concentration camp. They've been sent in there. In particular, the head of it is a guy called Shihri, S-H-I-H-R-I, is a Saudi who is in Guantanamo Bay camp there, and they sent him back to create Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP. And as you mentioned, our dear friend Al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey, has been transferred over there. And Al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey, is just
so they've got the Muslim Brigade commander now in place after doing great jobs here in America for them, especially at Fort Hood. I'm sure he's gotten medals with those dinners with the Secretary of the Army. We'll be right back on the other side of this break to continue to break down this key information with Webster Griffin Tarpley.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done has been right.
Okay, Webster, you were getting to Al-Qaeda Pentagon commander Ammar al-Awlaki, who's run the attacks to help give us the naked body scanners, who's helped attack the troops on record, runs all the attacks so they can bring in their tyranny. They've now deployed one of their top ring wraiths to the area. Adam Gadon, the grandson of the former head of ADL, who was arrested for beating up Arabs in Southern California before he grew a big beard and makes these announcements, always concurring with the new invasion. He's running around. You were getting into Ammar al-Awlaki, the CIA commander.
Well, these are double agents. I think both the two that you've just mentioned, Adam the American, so-called, and Al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey. These are double agents, and these are the leadership people. You were talking about Al-Qaeda before as the database, right? And certainly from the Pentagon point of view, and again, it's not the whole Pentagon. It's the people inside the Pentagon who are part of that Wall Street private network, that rogue network, that invisible government that's been there since Grover Cleveland surrendered to J.P. Morgan back in 1895. It's not the average military officer is going to be a victim of this stuff, and those are the people that you were mentioning before. So from the point of view, though, of the let's say the CIA terrorist controller or special forces guys or something like this, it's a database. But in terms of the social process that you see sociologically, it's a pool. It's a milieu, right? It's where people go and can be found. It's in cafes or on the internet. And who are these people, right? You were mentioning before. They're fanatics. They're psychotics. They're dupes. They're misfits. They're mercenaries. Some of them do it for money. Some of them are part of a criminal enterprise. They're common criminals. Some of them are mental deficients. Those are quite common in
They're a chaos league.
Right? But in the middle of all this are the double agents. And the double agents are the ones who tend then to become the leadership figures because they have the outside support, and the outside support can shape the environment so that these double agents get more power. So the average person, the average rank and file member of Al-Qaeda, maybe a fanatic or a dupe or a misfit or a psychotic, he may not know that he's actually working for the U.S. He thinks he's working for some religious cause.
And the ongoing Pentagon bombings in North Africa, in Yemen, in Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, killing whole weddings, that's also a good way to create, quote, Al-Qaeda, i.e. anybody that resists. When they go to join Al-Qaeda, they come into double agent midst to then be directed against the West as a pretext for the defense spending and the new wars. But now the shift back to the 1980s model of also using them as a secret army brigade.